Hello everyone, my name is Adam Karch for those that don't know me, and I am an instructor here at Parkland College in the automotive department. And so the nature of our automotive work and our work in CTE is largely that we want to be hands-on. We want to show students things in person, demonstrate processes and procedures, and then have them do those things hands-on. And we know that the climate of things right now and kind of the turbulence of fall is that we're going to have some hurdles like we saw in the spring, that we're going to have to find other ways to convey messages and convey demonstrations to our students with video and in virtual methods. And so John Ross had asked me to make a video about my sequence for making videos. I don't think that I'm necessarily a topic expert, but I've got some background experience coming into this job with video editing and photography, and I've spent a lot of time since March when we got locked down making videos for my students. And so I've kind of evolved through a process of using my phone and going to other equipment, and so I want to share some of the equipment with you, share some of the process, maybe some of the best practices that I've developed as I go through this, and some of the resources that we could utilize to hopefully help all of you that maybe you've made some videos and you're frustrated, maybe you find making videos intimidating. I want to be here to help, and so hopefully this video is a primer to get you going through that process and get you started with sharing your content with your students. So back in March, whenever we got pushed to online only, I decided that I was going to make videos as much as I could in order to still share the concepts in the shop and some of the troubleshooting things that I do with my sophomores in their second year class. So when I started this, I began really just with my phone. And so depending on the type of phone that you've got, most of us have a phone that's within the last 2 years of age. Most of those phones have pretty high quality, generally even high definition video functionality and capabilities, and that can go a long way. And so the early things that myself and John Ross have done really was just with our phones. And so there's some things that you can buy to upfit your phone to really help with that process. And so I want to show you some of those items and also talk about just some strategy about making these videos. Making a video is just like going to the classroom. If you have ever gone to do a demonstration, do a lecture, you're already prepared with the tools to prepare for your video. Making an outline or even a script about what you're going to say, the things that you need. Do you need props? Do you need materials, things like a vehicle to get that process done? Really, that all does not change for us. And I've got to say that that's probably more than half of what it takes to make a good video. The technology, all these other things really are a small percentage. And keep in mind, the content is what our students care about. As long as we can convey the content that's important, the quality, the production value, those things will come up with time. But as long as we can hit a decent baseline, I don't think it's something that is such a big deal. So here on the table, I've got a handful of the components and equipment that I use to make videos. And this really has evolved for me even since March, that there have been certain things I've been unhappy with or that I felt like were poor quality. And so I've bought things and made changes over time to get better, right? And so I'm going to share with you what I'm doing now and kind of what I started with. And so we can break that up into a few categories. We'll start with just the video portion. We'll talk about sound, then we'll talk about stabilizing tripods and some of the other things that are going to help us in this process. So the first one is video. What do I record my video on? Most of you probably have a smartphone that's capable of high definition video. I'm using an iPhone XS right now to record this video, and that has really served me well and done a good job. That iPhone is about 2 years old at this point, getting pretty close to that. And overall, I've had good success with it. We'll talk about in the sound portion of things, I did have to buy a different app to record my video to help with Bluetooth sound. But we'll get into that on the next portion with mics and things like that. The other options I've got for video, one is that I could purchase a camera. And so after using the iPhone for a while, I saw some of the limitations with that. I wanted to have just a little bit better quality and a little bit more control over settings. I've got some background in photography in school and just as a hobby. And so the flexibility that this offers is something that I was very interested in. And so we were able to purchase this and get reimbursement through the CARES Act. And so that's something to consider, is that there may be an opportunity to invest in some equipment and get reimbursement through that grant. So this is a Canon M50. It's a small mirrorless camera. It does utilize a removable lens. This is the standard kit lens that comes with it typically. So when you buy a camera like this, you can buy the body by itself, or you can buy it as a kit. They even have a kit beyond just the camera and lens, where you get a shotgun microphone, which is a microphone that really is meant to pick up audio that's focused similar to what the lens is doing. And so this purchase was about $500. They do carry these at Bestbuy in town, and so it is something that's pretty accessible if we want something dedicated beyond your phone. The next thing that we purchased to help with this process is a GoPro. GoPros have a fantastic user interface. It's very seamless and easy to use between recording on the GoPro to the memory card that's inside, and then transferring it to your phone or to your computer in order to edit and post things. They do a great job with very wide angle things. And so the reason that I purchased this was for technical videos where I'm underneath a car or in an engine bay. This has been really great that you can clip it on. It's got a really wide field of view. And so you can really capture a lot of great shots with that. And there's a lot of different attachments and ways to utilize this. One of those cool tools for the GoPro is this mount, which is a head strap. So you can put this on your head, mount the GoPro to it, and then you could really just walk around and do demonstrations and do processes that you would normally do in lab. And it's going to record it from that first person view. I think this is something that's really exciting. I haven't used it yet, but I think it provides a great opportunity where beyond what we do in the classroom with demonstrations, we get that first person view for the student. And I think that could be really powerful too. So with some of the video stuff figured out, let's talk about the sound and how do you achieve a better sound quality. I think that this is probably the biggest pain point when you first go to make a video, is that you want to maybe set up your phone and put it on a tripod, go about doing your demonstration, showing some kind of technical procedure, and you end up being 4 to 5 feet away from the camera, and the sound quality really suffers at that point. And so this is something that was my pain point early on. Our shop is probably 90% concrete and hard surfaces. And so the acoustics of the room that I'm in right now, the room out in the shop and the lab, are very poor. And so I had to overcome that. The early solution for me that was free was to use Apple Airpods that are already owned. And so I've got some Apple Airpods, which are essentially Bluetooth earbuds. They're able to connect to my phone, and then I can use them as a microphone. One of the things that I discovered early on with iOS and Apple iPhone products is that the native camera app, so the camera app that's just on your phone, will not allow you to use a Bluetooth microphone. And so that was a struggle. So I went to Google, I did some Googling, and I found that there were a couple of apps that were pretty popular in order to fix that problem. So I opted for an app called Movie Pro. I'll put a link in the description. It was $10 for my iPhone. I downloaded that app, and now that app allows me to use these AirPods as Bluetooth microphones to serve as an input for the audio on this. So right now, this video is being recorded on Movie Pro and microphones through the AirPods. One of the things that I didn't like about the AirPods was somewhat of the visual, just wearing them all the time in the videos, and I wanted to get away from that. There's also, I had to be conscious of battery life and things like that. It also created an issue when I went to using this Canon, is that if I wanted to continue the AirPods, I would have had to record them to my phone and then sync that audio from my phone with the camera's video later. And those are just extra steps. They can be done, but I didn't want to invest that time. And so I went looking for other options. And so most of us were familiar with lapel mics like this, really common in broadcasting, journalism, interviews, things like that. So this lapel mic is a wired version. The wired ones are much cheaper than any kind of wireless one that you could purchase. This is made by Insignia. Insignia is a brand at Bestbuy, and so they had this on shelf at Bestbuy. It was $50, and it has really worked very well. All my videos in the last few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, have been with this, and I've had great success with it. This has just a standard headphone jack, and you can plug that into a Canon camera like this or a digital SLR type camera. You can plug it in directly. You could also use it with your phone. You just have to have a headphone jack or an adapter, like in the iPhone's case, a lightning to 3.5 millimeter adapter to get that set up. One of the downfalls of this is that it is wired. The cord is quite long. I'd say it's a good 15 feet, 12 or 15 feet, but that's something that you got to contend with as you go, in my case, get tools and kind of move around to do certain technical videos. I've got to pay attention to this so I don't pull the camera off the tripod, trip on it, things like that. The last segment that I want to talk about are just some of the supporting things and different equipment and accessories that I think make this process easier. One of the other challenges beyond the audio that I often have is lighting. The camera maybe is having a hard time focusing, or things are dim and hard to see. And so lighting becomes an important element in that process. And so in the shop, I've done multiple things. I've used shop lights. We've got, work lights that we use typically as we work on vehicles. I've used those in many cases to highlight just small focused areas. The other thing is to look at a work light, or there are dedicated video lights. This LED work light is something that I borrowed from Thomas Fisher in the Ford Asset Program. He purchased this at Menards, but you can buy these at pretty much any of the hardware stores. And so it's an LED work light on a stand. This one happens to have 3 elements to it. You'll notice I taped paper on it. The paper helps to diffuse that light so that it's not such a spotlight and so harsh in the video. And so this acts as a diffuser, makes it a little bit more natural and soft. It also reduces some glares that you might get off glasses or off hard surfaces. The other important element that we need is a way to hold the phone so that we can go about doing demonstrations. If we got a helper that can run the phone and capture things, that's great. But the more steady that we can make the video, the better the quality is going to appear. So tripods are a great way to do that. And so I've got a handful of tripods, 3 now, that I've been working with. This one I bought early on. This is a Sunpack 5400 DLX. I purchased this at Meijer. It was about $30, and it did come with a mount to go up top here to hold your smartphone. So just a basic friction fit mount that's pretty universal for smartphones. And so you could really do a lot with this. It's a pretty good height and not very expensive. This other tripod I've got here is just a little bit taller. That's an older one that I personally owned. And then the one I'm using for this video is a Manfrotto tripod that I purchased at Bestbuy. That one was a bit more expensive, around $100, but the maximum height on that I think is closer to 62 or 64 inches. And so I found that to be a lot more versatile to get shots when I'm standing up, to have a good parallel sort of line from the camera to me as I stand. So now I've switched cameras and I've gone to my different mic. So this is the lapel mic that we talked about. And so you get a sense of the quality difference between the Airpods versus this microphone. I've also switched cameras to the Canon camera, and so I'm using that. One of the upsides here is that the screen for that camera flips out, and so I can see myself in the camera. I can see the framing of the shot, and so that helps me know as maybe I pick up things and show them, whether or not that they're in the shot and can be viewed well. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about is stabilization of videos. This is something that was a pain point for me early on. I wanted to be able to hold my phone and film video while talking, while touching a tool like a scan tool, going through a menu on a screen. And those things were hard. The video got to be pretty shaky, and I was worried that a student might see an overly shaky video and quit. So one of the ways to solve that problem is to use something called a gimbal. And so the gimbal that I purchased is one of the more affordable ones. It's about $200, and it's this device here. It's the DJI Osmo 3. And so it'll show you a little bit about how it works. The phone mount is just a friction type mount, and so it's got this little pocket. It's kind of spring loaded. I put my phone in like that, and then I turn on the gimbal down here at the bottom. It goes through a process, and then it sets and holds my phone, and you can kind of see that I can move this around, and it does a pretty good job of holding it steady. And so I can also turn it and then have it hold my phone and be horizontal. So there's some great perks to this for about $200. It allows me to walk around more readily, film things. I mentioned before that there's a tripod mount on the base here. I use this a lot on the tripod because I can mount it and then I can tap this joystick to make just small adjustments to framing a shot. And I find that it holds things really steady. If I bump the tripod or something, it's a small movement at that point. There's a couple other quirks with this that I've learned. One is that the native DJI app that records video on this, it uses Bluetooth to sync with the gimbal. And so that eliminates your ability to use a Bluetooth mic. You could still use a wired mic, I believe, at that point. But again, using the Movie Pro app has allowed me to get by that. So then let's talk about some of the more maybe soft skill ideas for making videos. As I mentioned before, as instructors, I think we're all well versed to make videos. It's the same kind of process we use to go into lecture, go into lab demonstrations. All those preparatory things that we do also work with making videos. And so that's something that should be one of the easy points for us. But then what are some tips to maybe make your videos appear more professional or maybe just more exciting? I think one of the things is switching angles. So you'll notice in this video I've been at maybe 4 different points with different perspectives behind me, kind of different camera angles, sitting for some of it, standing by a car, right? The switch up to make those things happen, to do different shots, is pretty minimal, and I think it makes a big impact. It makes it more exciting and a little less dry than maybe just standing in one point the whole time. So we've talked about a lot of the technology perspectives and going through this process, and some of the things that I have learned as maybe best practice type ideas. But at the end of the day, think about this sequence, and let's talk a little bit about the end of this process. So we talked about prepping and going through getting ready to take a video, filming the video. Keep in mind that when you go to film a video, it is weird to look at a camera and see yourself at first and just talk to a camera by yourself. But I gotta say, it was weird for me, but it has quickly become somewhat normal. And so my, I guess, confidence level or just familiarity with it has improved enough to make me more comfortable as I go through this. The other thing to keep in mind is that it is okay to do things over and over. There's a lot of things where I'll begin talking. Maybe I've got kind of a pre-planned script in my head, and I'll get partway through it and decide, you know, that's not the best way to do it. I take a deep breath, take a pause, and then just do it again. Because of the ability to go back and edit later, I could clip those things out and really end up with a more polished video. Just imagine that if you were in lecture in class and you could just stop and start and then stitch it all together later, we really become great educators as we do that. So it opens a door to really help improve your process and improve how you go about talking on certain subjects. Once we get everything filmed, now what do we do? That's another one of the technology kind of hurdles for some of us. One of the things that we have to figure out. I'm fortunate that I've got some background in video editing. I spent a lot of my high school, early college years, things like that, making videos. So I had prior knowledge of a piece of software called Adobe Premiere. And so fortunately, through Parkland's access of Adobe Creative Cloud, I'm able to use that Premiere Pro product. And they also have a product called Adobe Rush that is a more stripped down version. It's much like iMovie. The licenses for the Creative Cloud suite are something that you have to ask for, and I don't know about their true availability at this point, but it is something that we could invest in and look at as a group to see, can we get access to that software. But what are my other options to edit video? There's a lot of them. So if you've got an iPhone or just a basic iOS device, there's an app called iMovie that's pretty user-friendly, allows you to insert different clips. You can trim them and shorten them as you need, and then it also allows you to do transitions and titles. The downside to that is doing it on a small screen phone is probably going to be a little frustrating and a little cumbersome. Something like an iPad might make that better, but depending on the age of the iPad, you might be looking at some slow performance if you're making longer videos, 10, 20 minutes or better. So those are some of the options. Some of the other options on PC and Mac. On the Mac platform, iMovie is also available in a desktop version, and so that's a great choice. There's a lot of power within that. There's other apps all across the board that are free that you could use for video editing without paying anything. Those are things that I could help research, but I can't speak to some of those options just offhand. So that's something we could look into as a group. The other thing that we're going to have to do is once we get it filmed and edited, we're going to have to post it somehow. And so TechSmith Relay is a great tool that is pretty user-friendly, allows us to post a video. They take care of a lot of the compression and all the things with that for you. And that's one of the other things that comes about when editing is when I go to save my final video, how do I save it? Fortunately for us, most of the video editing platforms have presets like full HD for YouTube or 720p for YouTube, which is just a little bit less resolution. Those things all offer quick, easy solutions to save a video where the quality is going to be good and it's not going to be pixelated. If we use TechSmith Relay, that's a great place to save it and allows me to put that in Cobra. The other thing that you could do is use something like YouTube or Vimeo to save your videos. I've opted to use YouTube because I think it's a great place where I can save things. I've got confidence that it will be there for years. It also becomes public facing. And so for us in our discussions with automotive, we wanted to put these videos in a place where they could serve as marketing and recruitment material later on. So our vision is kind of to make these videos and have them shared publicly because they showcase the tools, they showcase our shop and our space here at Parkland. They could also be teaching materials and learning supplements for maybe local high schools and other people we come into contact with. One more quick tip I want to offer that I thought about after filming a bunch of this stuff is that when I go making a video, I find that oftentimes when I do an introduction, I have one frame of mind. I go through the process and then I get to the end of that process and my perspective has changed a little bit about what were the key points to highlight and those things. And so one of the tips that I've got that I did for this video is to film your introduction at the end. If you film your introduction at the end, your mind is much more fresh in the process because you've gone through it. So rather than pre-film it with what you think is going to happen, post-film the introduction so that you've got that knowledge of what kind of things you encountered and saw as you went through the process. I hope that this information helps you get started in the sequence, in this process. I think it's a great opportunity for us all in this technical space to really beef up and bulk up the kind of content that we offer to our students. We know the next year is going to be probably pretty turbulent and these kind of videos become necessary. But even in the future, as we go through our normal classes, I use Cobra a lot and for homework and just general guidance and layout of classes. And having all these videos and this content made is going to be a huge asset going forward, even when we go back to traditional classroom settings and lab settings. So think about this as an investment and not so much as just an irritation. And I think it is really going to benefit us in the long term. Thanks for watching this. I hope I didn't ramble on too long. I'll put a lot of notes in the description of this video about some of those products and things so you can take a look at those. And of course, I'm open to questions and comments. I can do my best to consult with maybe the equipment you've got or your resources and what can we do to help get you moving forward to make some videos. Thanks for watching again. Good luck.